Race 2 of the weekend in the GT4 European Series here from Imola. David Addison looking down onto a circuit that is bathed in sunshine, and the entry 17 strong for this weekend's action. There are more teams planning on joining the championship as the season unfolds, and of course with everything that's been going on globally, teams, drivers, sponsors all reassessing their plans. But what we have had is a very good, very competitive entry, and yesterday we had an intriguing race as well. It was one of those very odd mini enduros that began with a red flag for signage issues because of signage damage caused by a storm earlier on in the week. We got going, and although we had a good race, largely between BMWs up at the front, we then, right at the very end, had fuel dramas for a couple of cars, and two retired on the last lap out of fuel. So, a few lessons learned from yesterday all round, and the grid is based not on finishing positions, of course, but by the time set by the driver that will start the car within the second qualifying session. And that means that the winners of yesterday's first race, Gabriele Piana, who sets the time, and Bas Schouten, line up on pole position in the RN Vision STS BMW, with Valentin Asclot lining up alongside in the Aston Martin that he shares with Theo Nue. Now, Asclot is one of a few drivers doing both GT4 and GT3 duties this weekend. The race is an hour long. There is a pit window between 25 and 35 minutes. And the pit stop, pit in to pit out is 105 seconds. There is Gabriele Piana, the Germany-based Italian, who will start in the BMW from pole position, the M4. That has proved to be a very, very good car for Imola. And Valentin Asclot for the AGS Events squad lining up alongside with the Aston Martin. He is the notional entrant of the Vantage AMR GT4, and he shares the car with a very quick young Theo Nue, who is, like quite a few people in fact here this weekend, relatively inexperienced in car racing terms, but Theo Nue, only 17 years of age, former French F4 racer. There is Gaël Castelli, who was one of those unlucky drivers yesterday. The car, the new Toyota GR Supra GT4, expiring out of fuel on the penultimate lap, and he limped as far as he could but couldn't get it onto the last lap of the race, and it was parked on the track going no further. Let's have a quick stroll up the grid, see who we've got. Gabriele Piana's BMW starts on pole with alongside Valentin Asclot. The second row of the grid, a man to watch in the Cayman, the Porsche Cayman GT4 CSMR, Nikolai Müller-Madsen, the Dane who was the Silver Cup champion 2 years ago, and Gaël Castelli in the Toyota Supra that he shares with the experienced Belgian Stéphane Lemaire. On the third row, former champ car racer Joël Mathias, experienced Porsche peddler, and he drives the number 718 iteration of the Cayman with Ivan Giacomo. And then you've got Xavier Lloveras in the Mercedes, sixth on the grid. He was denied a race yesterday. That car retired at the pit window with suspension damage. On the fourth row, Gilles Vannelet, a vastly experienced driver is Gilles. He's also in the GT3 race here. He will start with Nicolas Gomar, his co-driver. Bastien Bous lines up alongside in the second of Allied Racing's Caymans. Jan Kasperlik will share. Then we've got a gap, have we not? Because although we've got Timon Naburs in the V8 Racing Chevrolet, missing is the Timothy Bure Antoine Potti Toyota, for reasons that have not yet been vouchsafed. We'll try and get to the bottom of that. Koen Bogart starts next in the number 110 BMW, the second of the RN Vision cars, and number 71 is Stefano Valli. They were class winners yesterday. Valli and Paolo Maloney, they were the AM winners in the W&D Racing Team BMW. Ibrahim Okiai, number 13, goes solo, so he gets an extra 10 seconds in the pits. There is Jagish Gedik, who yesterday finished third in the race, the opening stint dominated by his co-driver Chembolo Boisi, who was the Formula Renault Esports champion in lockdown. Number 30 was another car that retired yesterday with a puncture. Kay Van Berlo will start the SRT, the Sellerslach Racing Team, Patrick Sellerslach's Mercedes, with alongside him Salvatore Riolo, and then at the back of the grid Maurizio Frati in another of the Caymans, glorious looking car, the Cayman 718. Dario Cerati, the 76-year-old, will take over that car for the second stint. Sorry, 72-year-old. I do Dario Cerati an injustice. 72 years of age he is. So there is the grid with that one gap. So not sure as the cars are now released what has happened to the Toyota, whether it missed the pit lane opening and will start from the pits, or whether it's got a problem. We'll try to find out. So the field gets away. It's 1 lap behind the pace car as it is effectively now, and then the race underway. GT4 GT cars, of course, closer to their road-going equivalents, and less modified, less powerful, less aero trickery on these than on a GT3 car. And the number of manufacturers now building cars for GT4 getting greater and greater all the time. Now, the Toyota, I understand, has been in the pit lane, might be going to the paddock with a problem. So the Timothée Bouret and Antoine Potti Toyota with a problem. Fingers crossed it might be able to join in late, if only for a test session. So, as I say, it's a shame that the entry isn't as large as last year, but I think it's understandable. Lots of championships are finding that they haven't quite got the numbers, but it's still impressive. And the race that we had yesterday is good. There are more teams still working on deals for the remainder of the season, and it's good to see new brands coming on as well. The Toyota, for example, and there are going to be these cars within the GT4 class of British GT. There's a pair of them for selected races run by Speedworks, 1 permanent entry, and here you've got 2 in the entry, 1 on the track at the moment, the car of Gaël Castelli and Stéphane Lemery. So the field now turning out of the Acqua Minerale chicane up over the brow. Safety car will peel in, the pace car peels in at the end of this lap, and then we will be in business for 60 minutes of the GT4 European Series. Those 2 bright blue BMWs run by the Borusan Automotive Motorsport team. Certainly, you can expect number 12 in the hands in the second stint of Cembo Lavazzi to make some good progress, because he was very, very quick yesterday. And Jagish Gedik, when he was behind the wheel, trying to hang on to second place, certainly knew how to defend, let's put it that way. That car just grew in width, and anybody that tried to get past him was swatted aside. So those 2 very distinctive BMs will be worth keeping an eye to over the course of this hour, no question about it. They're the Alpha 156 GTA chase car at the back of the pack, and the field then coming over the brow down in a moment through the approach to Rivazza, and of course at the end of this lap we will be good to go. So the field ready for this second race of the GT4 European Series. It was full of incident and action yesterday, and expect more of the same now then as the formation lap comes to a close. The cars get themselves into the Noah's Ark 2x2 formation. The race director, the British official Steve Burns, if he's happy, will give the call to go. The pace car peels in, the drivers accelerate up towards the timing line now. This counterclockwise, nearly 5-kilometre circuit then, with pole position the BMW. Behind the wheel of it, Gabriele Piana, who was mighty yesterday, and he's a very experienced GT4 and GT3 racer, so arguably one of the benchmark drivers on the grid. He, in a moment, when the lights change, will floor the throttle. We go racing here at Imola, and a good getaway by the BMW then. So Piana it is that leads Gaël Castelli, tries to find a gap between the 2 front row cars as they go down towards Tamburello for the first time. Does Gabriele Piana hang on to the advantage? Let's see. Yes, he does. He rides the curb, and now accelerates his way through Tamburello on down towards Villeneuve. There's drama in the pack, though, I'm afraid, because around goes, first of all, the Sellerslag Mercedes. That was the Kay Van Berlo car, and it was also, I think, Stefano Valli at the wheel of the BMW, the AM winner yesterday, that got caught up in that and has rotated as well. The missing Toyota, I gather, has been pushed into the pit lane, so they're still working on it, trying to get it into the race. If it goes a lap down, life becomes tough. If it can stay on the lead lap, a safety car might draw it into the mix. But up front, Piana leads. Second is Asclo. Third is Castelli there in the new Supra with its stubby back, its long front, and those 3 getting away from Nikolai Muller-Madsen, who's heading the Porsche class here with the ex-champ car racer Joel Camathlius tucked up behind him. Joel has done a lot of Porsche mileage over the last decade or so, and he's right there on the back of ex-Audi driver, indeed former Silver Cup champion in this series, Nikolai Muller-Madsen. The cars come out, and Acqua Minerale for the first time now riding the curves. In 6th place, you've got the Mercedes of Xavier Lloveras, and then it is the young Danish driver Bastian Buus tucked up behind him. There he is. And then behind Buus, it is Koen Bogarts ahead of Tybin Nabours in the Chevrolet, and Gilles Vannelet rounding out the top 10 as the cars drop downhill then for the first time into the approach to Rivazza. There's the Toyota going through, but now actually look, Castelli's coming under attack from Nikolai Muller-Madsen, who lunges up the inside. And through he goes. Castelli gets run out wide, and that's going to put Camathlius up and past him as well. So 2 down for Gail Cassidy, and Moller Madsen clawed back the time out of nowhere and certainly pounced. Now, whether that caught Gail Cassidy napping, whether he's got a problem, let's find out, because suddenly the time went at the end of the lap and Nikolai Moller Madsen needed no second invitation. Through he went. So up into 3rd place, Moller Madsen. He was 3rd on the grid, didn't make the best of starts. Now Camathias gets up alongside him through Tamburello. Moller Madsen all over the curb, he's sideways, he takes Camathias, who's off as well. Cassidy gets his place back, and in all the mayhem now, Joel Camathias tries to rejoin. He does get going. So Nikolai Moller Madsen just tagged in. Now, did Moller Madsen survive all of that? Well, yes, he did, but he's a long way back in 9th spot. So the 2 Caymans getting themselves together, and the net result of all of that is that Joel Camathias comes off worse. They're still squabbling here. Look, as Gilles Vannelet is under attack because he's got the recovering Moller Madsen right up behind him, and also there, being run out wide, is Timon Nabours. So Gail Cassidy has got his 3rd place back. 4th is Lloveras. In 5th place now is Bastien Bus. And Joel Camathias rejoins, but a long, long way back, as you see the different brands represented on the graphic there. Moller Madsen goes ahead of Gilles Vannelet. Moller Madsen goes wide. Vannelet comes back at him as they come out of Pelotella. There they are side by side. On the inside line is Nikolai Moller Madsen. He goes back through, but all of that zealotry at Tamburello with Camathias alongside him has cost both of them places. And Joel Camathias is the one that's got the bigger fight now to try to get himself onto terms with anybody else. Stefano Valli, incidentally, after his first lap tangle, is in the pit lane, and the Toyota number 66 of Timothée Bure has not started. So here is for 4th place Xavier Lloveras, ex-Ginetta racer, with now Bastien Bus tucked up behind him. Bastien Bus in his first season of car racing, up from karting, and eager to prove just how good he is. Well, he's going the right way about it, isn't he? Breathing down the neck of the Spanish driver, who is new to this car this year, Xavier Lloveras, and his co-driver, Luc Ivaniev, having forsaken their Ginetta G55 in favour of the turnkey Mercedes, which is under attack from the Porsche. The Cayman alongside flashes past Bastien Bus with his foot nailed to the boards. Down to Tamburello, goes through, goes then up into 4th place. Good move that, made it work. Joel Camathias then down in 13th place after that spin. And Gabriele Piana leading the way and getting away from Valentin Asclot, who's already over a second to the good, as there you see Bastien Bus going through in 4th place. 5th is Lloveras as they come through the approach to Villeneuve. In 6th place is Koen Bogarts. 7th behind him is Timon Nabours. Out wide, 8th, Nikolai Moller Madsen kicking up the dirt ahead of Gilles Vannelet. And there, Ibrahim Okiai is in 10th place. Camathias in the background is up to 12th. So he's still fighting, but he's got a lot of fighting to do here. Piana leading the way, the gap up to a 2.5 seconds now, as there is the fight for 4th place. Bastien Bus getting away from Xavier Lloveras. So the Spanish GT racer comes downhill. Behind him is the very experienced Dutchman, Koen Bogarts. And there, Timon Nabours is next in the queue. Timon is another driver with limited car racing experience, but he's about to learn and learn fast, because right there behind him, look, is Nikolai Moller Madsen and also Gilles Vannelet. So the 2 of them are together right on the tail of the grunt and go Chevy as they come through the chicane at the Variante Alta here. Up front, Piana is pulling clear all the while, getting away from the opposition, building that gap. Downhill they come. And is that going to be an opportunity for Moller Madsen to have a look when he thinks about it? Out wide goes Timon Nabours. Thank you very much, says Moller Madsen. Gilles Vannelet goes for a gap that suddenly disappeared, but Nikolai Moller Madsen goes through. Now, have a look at all the grunt that the Chevrolet's got. Moller Madsen gives him a squeeze. 2 wheels on the lawn there as Timon Nabours comes up alongside the Porsche. And that Chevrolet should be able now to go powering on by. They come over the timing line side by side. It is going to be the late braking move into Tamburello that will decide the place. On the inside, it's going to be the Chevrolet, but the Porsche stays ahead. Nikolai Moller Madsen, brave stuff that, braking ludicrously late on the outside line, gets his nose back in front, secures the place. Nabours has got Vannelet tucked up behind him as well now, and not that far adrift. Ibrahim Okiai, Jagish Gedik, 10th and 11th in the BMW M4s. So great racing we've got. Moller Madsen bouncing over the curb, a lot more lean, a lot more travel in the softly sprung GT4 cars than the more aero-tweaked GT3 cars that we have at Imola as well this weekend. And they're accelerating out of Tosa, this midfield pack, with Vannelet on the attack this time. So Nikolai Moller Madsen 7th he runs from 3rd on the grid, trying to play catch-up. He did make the best of starts, then he had his moment at Tamburello. Joel Camafias, though, is not making the same progress. Admittedly, he was badly delayed, worse delayed, but he's got still quite a bit of time to make up before he can get on to terms with the BMWs of the Turkish motorsport team, the Borasan Automotive Motorsport Squad. So out of the Variante Alta they turn once more, and Gabriele Piana is, now that the tyres are up to temperature, now that the fuel load is coming down and he's got clear road ahead of him, he is on for the fastest lap of the race here, because he has just done 2 purple sectors. Yesterday it was, not surprisingly, Piana who did the fastest lap of the race. They won in the end by 23 seconds in the BMW. Well, the gap might extend in this opening stint, but Bas Schouten, although he's quick, Bas isn't as quick as Piana. We saw that yesterday. So the second stint, as ever, is going to be fascinating, because there the field pours out of Rivazza. That's Joel Camafias, number 718 in the Cayman 718 CSMR. The Club Sport Manthey Racing is where the MR comes from, who make this car for homologation purposes. Over the curve goes Koen Bogaerts. There behind him is the hard-charging Nicolai Moller-Madsen, who came out of the Audi Sport TT Cup, the very quick Danish driver. And he's certainly proving that he can be forceful here. Now there, the Pro-Am leading car, Bastian Buus, the Danish teenager, at the wheel of it. And the reason that it's a Pro-Am leading car is because all those ahead are from the Silver Cup, and the AMs are being led by Gilles Vandelet, Nicolas Gomar in the Aston Martin. So Moller-Madsen up the hill in 4th place. Up front, Piana is now the leader by 2.9 seconds from Asclo. There is the Chevrolet of Thymen Nabors, the spectacular looking and sounding Chevrolet Camaro GT4. Downhill goes Nabors, the V8 racing team, and it's going to be Jochen Rapinge that will take over that car. Another driver in his first season of car racing is Rapinge, and he was in the walls a bit yesterday, got mixed up in an incident on the first lap of the race. He'd already been in the gravel in his qualifying session, so it's quite tough, this new circuit, new car, and a tricky car as well for first-timers. Now the pit window, 25 to 35 minutes, so we've got still a quarter of an hour yet before the drivers need to worry about pit stops. And dare one suggest finally that things are just calming down a little on track. There is 22 in 4th place, Bastian Buus, keeping Xavier Lloveras at bay. What about Nicolai Moller-Madsen? Because there's normally action where he is involved. He's on the back of Koen Bogaerts now. So behind these two is the next fight to look for. The BMW of Bogaerts just ahead of Moller-Madsen. So there's the Mercedes. That is Xavier Lloveras going by. But where is the fight? There it's for 3rd place going over the line, Castelli. Back into the race is Stefano Valli in the AM BMW. Has gone a lap down. So in the background, let's see where the battle is between. Still Bogaerts is ahead of Moller-Madsen, then the BMW keeping the Cayman at bay. They are absolutely nose to tail as they come now up towards Villeneuve. So Bastian Buus keeping the Mercedes behind him. Bastian Buus in his first delayed start season of car racing. Xavier Lloveras behind him. Now there, look in the background, you can see that Moller-Madsen is right on the back of Bogaerts. He's going to make a move coming up towards Tosa. He's got the inside line. Bogaerts gives him racing room. The Cayman is good coming out of the corner and accelerates up the hill now. But has it got the grunt? Let's see. The BMW is also a very good car for this circuit, as we saw yesterday. And Bogaerts stays ahead on the outside line. Moller-Madsen's got the inside for the next corner. Job done. Through he goes on the inside at Pilatella. So the Cayman is ahead, finally. And in all of that, look, you've got Thymen Nabors, who is right on the back of Koen Bogaerts now. So the two Dutch drivers running as one. BMW versus Chevrolet. Climb the hill, up now towards the Variante Alta. Bogaerts goes defensive, and while all that is going on, Nicolai Moller-Madsen has done the absolute best of anybody within the first sector. He's on a mission. He will give that car over to experienced AM, Jörg Wiebad. So, not necessarily suggesting an outright win, but certainly a Pro-Am class win is on the cards, or it's a real possibility, but they've got to work hard to beat the Silver Cup opposition here, which are effectively two evenly matched drivers, normally young guns or experienced GT drivers of a number of years. So there over the line is Valentin Asclo. He's dropping away from Piana, even though he's doing personal best in sectors, and the gap between first and second, sector third, is about the same, 3.1 seconds. Now Thymen Nabors there, looking the Chevrolet. inching up onto the back once more of the traffic ahead. Ignore the BMW for a moment, because that is Stefano Valli, who was a lap down after his pit stop after his spin. So he's trying to get out of the way. The trouble is, he's so far back now from the class opposition, it's not going to help matters one bit. Over the curb goes Muller Madsen. Over the curb and airborne goes Muller Madsen. More than anything, I think, he's the driver that throws more energy at this car, and in turn throws the car at the curbs. Whether it's the quickest way around Imola, well, right now, the sector times are okay. He is making progress. Behind him, Koen Bogart's having to go defensive to keep Timon Naboers at bay. Flash of the lights, more in hope than in anticipation from Naboers there. Bogart's now being held up a little bit by Stefano Valli as they come through Penatella. They'll plunge down the hill in a moment. The BMW back marker gets out of the way. And now Naboers thinks about the inside line, but it's tough to do it here at the Acqua Minerale. You turn, you brake, you turn again. Going up the hill, there's a kink. So it's not an easy place unless you can force a mistake out of the car ahead of you. And Bogarts is an experienced peddler, so he does not make an error. He does not bounce out wide. He stands his ground as there. Whoops, all over the curb goes Nikolai Muller-Madsen. It's fascinating as well to see as the weekend goes on and drivers get more confident, they take more liberties, and how much more curb is being used there. Had it in the Formula Renault Euro Cup qualifying session at the start of the day, people being a bit more aggressive, and it caught 1 or 2 out. Muller Madsen then actually under braking for Ivatsa, being closed in on again by Koen Bogarts there. Up towards the timing line, and the Porsche doesn't have a problem. All of a sudden, that BMW looks a lot nearer. We know it's good in the straight line, and the same is true of the Corvette, but equally, Muller Madsen earlier on in the race was oh so brave at this part of the circuit, where it just flat out, as soon as you're up out of the gears coming out of Rivazza, until you get to here, the braking zone for Tamburello, which of course had to be reprofiled after the events of 1994. So Bogarts on the back of Muller Madsen, bringing Timon Naboers in the Chevrolet with him. So 7th runs the BMW. Bogarts again, look, moves to the middle of the road and boxes off that line that Timon Naboers would think about. Through Villeneuve they come. Short burst of acceleration, and now on towards Tosa. So Muller Madsen 6th, and actually that's where he's plateaued, despite all the pace that he had recovering. He's not yet getting much closer to the back of Xavier Lloveras, whose last lap was a little bit faster than that of Muller Madsen. So the cars here make the run through Piratella. The incidents between the Porsches that we had early on, no action required according to the officials. So the drivers in question can carry on without any Damocletian investigations hanging over them, as out of the Variante Alta they come once more, with Timon Naboers now much closer to the back of the Koen Bogarts BMW as they are about to make the run down the hill. Gail Castelli, incidentally, in the Toyota, chipping away once more at Asclo for 2nd place, just doing improved sector times. So downhill they turn. There going through is 89, that's Gilles Vannelet, and he's got Jagish Gedik right up behind him. Stefano Valli's BMW, remember, is the one that's about to go a lap down from these drivers. Jochen Matthias in number 718, the Cayman there of the Century Porsche Ticino, should also be able to make a move, one would have thought, before long against Gedik. Certainly, given the experience that Matthias has, he should be able to outbox him. Now there for 7th and 8th, still, you've got Koen Bogarts fending off Timon Naboers, staring at the back of that BMW as they come now down towards Villeneuve once more. And Muller Madsen has got away once again, hasn't he? So having been caught by the BMW a lap or so back, now that gap has markedly widened once more. Down they come through Tosa. There's the Chevrolet, and that's the overall race leader. That is Gabriele Piana, who at the end of the previous lap was 3.4 seconds clear of anybody else. Gail Castelli last time through a 10th quicker than Valentin Asclo. So the Aston Martin in 2nd place, the Toyota, a new car for GT4 this year, they're in 3rd spot. A lot of work done over the winter by Gazoo Racing, the Toyota Motorsports brand, to get these cars built and tested and make them competitive so that the customers are on the pace out of the box. There is Gail Casterly going through. A car, as I say, that ran out of fuel yesterday. And there, as the drivers drop downhill, is Koen Bogart still fending off Timon Naboers in the Chevrolet. So Gabriele Piana, the race leader by almost 4 seconds. Start now to think about the relative pace of drivers within the second stint. One that's going to be worth watching, certainly, is the BMW that's currently 10th. Jagish Gedig will give way to the man that was on pole position yesterday, which is Cem Bolokbazi. Baschouten, who was quick but dropped away from Bolokbazi yesterday, will take over that leading car. And Theo Nue will take over this second-place car. Stefan Lemire, who's also experienced, will take over the third-place Toyota. In other words, there are some quick drivers still to come, and with gaps that have opened up and with differing pace of those second stint drivers, there could still be quite a bit of shuffling. So, as ever in these double driver races, the second part's going to be as intriguing as the first. Casterly for CMR, classic and modern racing, comes over the brow. That's a busy team here because it's got cars also in the GT World Challenge Europe GT3 race. And there is Timon Naboers making the climb up towards the Piratella, but he can't, for the moment at least, find a way past Koen Bogarts, it seems. Runs right on the back of the BMW. They drop downhill now through the Acqua Minerale. Make the climb over the brow once again on this, the 10th lap of the race. There's Nicolai Müller-Madsen ahead, getting away. Now, ahead of Müller-Madsen, Xavier Lloveras, who is still lapping quicker, actually. So despite Müller-Madsen looking quick, looking spectacular, and there being clear road ahead of him, he's not for the moment bringing down that gap. So Gabriele Piana's advantage, 4.2 seconds on this lap, going up all the time. Bogarts makes his way now towards the timing line. Comes through, still being chased by Timon Naboers for 7th and 8th places. There's Müller-Madsen going past in the Allied Racing Porsche. And on that lap, again, fractionally slower than the driver ahead of him. So Lloveras still the quicker out of those two. So Müller-Madsen is sort of stuck now. There goes Bastien Boos. Now, he's also looking fairly rapid at the moment. Bastien Boos running in a good 4th place. He shares that car with Jan Kasperlik. And in yesterday's race, they got 6th. The Mercedes surviving, unlike yesterday, because yesterday, Luc Ibanez, that did the first stint, was pretty aggressive over the curb and did for the rear suspension of the car. So at the pit stops, I'm afraid, it parked and it went no further. So there's number 15 out of the Acqua Minerale. Xavier Lloveras, who, along with Luc Ibanez, has moved away from the Ginetta, the NM Racing team going the route of the Mercedes for this year. The Ginetta added variety, but last year it was the only one and it had some reliability issues. So they've elected to move to the Mercedes for this season. Downhill into Rivazza they come. We're only about 4 minutes now or so off the pit window opening. So after all the early excitement, it's settled down a little bit, this first stint of the race, with the lead gap over 4 seconds, but they're up towards the timing line, looking as though the gap might have come down slightly between them. Is the 4th and 5th placed duel. Bastien Boos ahead of Xavier Lloveras. Over the timing line they will come. And as they do so, the lead gap that Piana has is now 4.5 seconds, and there he is. So Gabriele Piana way out clear. As I said early on, he's a man with GT4 and GT3 experience. He's quick. He's pretty successful in both, actually. GT3 perhaps more so in VLN, and now, as it's called, the Nürburgring Endurance Series events. But he's not the most fashionable of GT3 drivers. He's not been picked up by some of the other teams in the way that other drivers might have been. But Piana, you know, he's always going to deliver, especially in these GT4 cars. Put him into one, and he's very, very quick indeed. So it's no surprise, really, that he's showing good pace out front. They've got Bogarts under real attack now from Timon Naboers, who's trying to attack on the inside at Tosa, and we'll have a go coming up the hill because Bogarts goes out wide, moves right across on him. Was that a nudge between the two of them? It looked like it. Tymon Nabours backs out, makes another go as they head up the hill. Both of these cars have got lots of torque, so they're really good going up the hill. Nabours thinks about the inside line, but this is a guy in his first year of car racing against Koen Bogarts, who's been around the block quite a lot over the years, especially in GT4 machinery. Downhill they come now, and Tymon Nabours, I fear, is going to have to try and get ahead on the pit stops and give that car over to Jock Rapinge to go ahead of the BMW. Mark van der Aert, another experienced GT4 driver, will take over from Koen Bogarts. They bounce over the curbs here, out of the Variante Alta, and now sprint their way along the Brabantse Rivazza. Quite why all the headlight flashing is going on from Tymon Nabours. Talk about being an optimist. If he's hoping that's going to distract Koen Bogarts, well, it ain't working just yet, but he's certainly not going to move out of the way for him. So Tymon Nabours might feel he's being held up, but legitimately he is being held up by the car because they're battling for position. There is Joel Camathias, who is now up into 9th place. 10th look is the BMW of Jagish Gedik, and then behind Gilles. Still the AMS being led by the Vanillé Aston Martin, the Pro-AMS currently by the 22 Bastien Bus, Jan Kasperlik Porsche, and the Silvers, of course, by the outright race leader, namely Gabriele Piana as at Tosa. The battle between Koen Bogarts and Tymon Nabours continues. Almost a replay of the last lap because out wider goes the BM. There's no contact between them this time, though. So Tymon Nabours, again, stays on the tail as they climb the hill. Comes now into Peratella. And the pit window will be open in just over a minute's time. They'll squeeze one more lap out of this, but in a number of cases, you've got the quicker driver doing this first stint. Therefore, they will stay out for longer and therefore maximise their time behind the wheel. One that might come in early is the number 12 BMW for Cembolo Kbazi to take over from Jagish Gedik, as they're weaving one way and then the other is Tymon Nabours, again getting in the mirrors of Koen Bogarts, trying to distract him, just trying to put him off his stroke, just brake a bit later maybe, or go a bit deep into a corner. That's the intention, just to compromise the line that the BMW has, but as yet it ain't working. Down the hill they come then into the first part of Rivazza, with the apartments overlooking the circuit and giving the fans that live locally great view of the circuit itself. Up now to the timing line comes the race leader then, and Gabriele Piana well clear. Koen Bogarts through behind there in the BMW, and actually gets away slightly, doesn't he, by a length or so here over Tymon Nabours. Past the pits they come. That's pit out, which is going to be a busy place very shortly because the pit window is now open. That means at the end of this lap, the leading cars, if they so desire, can think about pit stops. Those at the back of the field, of course, can pit now because the window is open and they have yet to make their way up towards the timing line, so they could pit on that lap if they so desire. So now the shuffling will start. The order will confuse for 10 minutes because it's a brief window open. And Gabriele Piana, again, I think we'll expect to stay out for the bulk of this time available to him before he gives way to Bas Schouten. So the BMW, which has had an absolutely faultless stint, Gabriele Piana from pole position, and all the pole position setters in the three classes get a Satina watch for their efforts, those presented after the qualifying session. So if he looks at his wrist, Gabriele can probably measure the gap that he's got over everybody else now. He comes downhill into Rivazza with Valentin Asclot doing the chasing. Valentin, one of a number of drivers who is on double duty, GT4 as well as GT3, so a lot of miles around here, but of course having to adapt to the different feel of different cars, not only for, in some cases, different teams, but different brands as well. And of course these cars with a lot less aero, very different from the GT3 machinery. And when you get to the GT World Challenge Europe race and you're the second or the third driver thrown into the car and you've got to deliver straight away, then the pressure is really on, so it's tough to adapt instantly. Piana through then. Do we have anybody coming to the pit lane? Well, Asclot is a no, he stays out. Gael Castelli is a no. Bastien Bus stays out. There's dust settling though coming out of Rivazza. Rogel Camathias now heads towards the timing line. Jagish Gedik is in though, so perhaps not surprisingly, because he's not as quick as Cembolo Kbazi, who was the pole position driver for yesterday's race. In comes Jagish Gedik. So there you can see the margin that is going to have to be pulled back by Bolo Kbazi against this car of Gabriele Piana, which will go to Barshouten. It's about half a lap, really, which is going to be too tall an order unless this car has a problem, or, of course, unless there's a safety car. But now that the gaps have opened up a little bit, that looks less likely. In also has come number 110, so that is for Koen Bogaerts to give way to Mark van der Aar. That's the sister car to the race-leading BMW from RN Vision STS. Behind, similar car, different team. That for Borushan Automotive. That's now Cembo Lukbazi behind the wheel of it. And number 111 is Gabriele Piana, the race leader. As yesterday, he has been the class act in all of this, pulling clear of the opposition. So downhill he turns once again. And the race-leading BMW then making its way up towards the timing line. Another lap completed by Gabriele Piana, staying out for as long as he can. And 7 seconds is now the margin. So can Theo Nue bring down that 7-second gap over the BMW where Barshouten drives it in the second stint? As down the pit road there you see is the Xavier Lloveras, soon-to-be Luc Ibanez Mercedes. We've got a yellow flag, seemingly, in the middle sector. Somebody has had a moment, according to the timing screen. And that's the reason. It is one of the Porsches, 75, that is, which means Maurizio Frati, yet to make a pit stop, won't need to worry about one, because he's off the road. And he's off the road because... oh, I think something seizes at the back, doesn't it? He was out of the corner, and then just pitches him off the road. So... that could well be a safety car, actually, just as the pit window is open. That's bad news for the race officials, because that's done a front corner. That will not be easy to move. So the window is open. The savvy teams will probably dive in now. And that's Gabriele Piana, who has slowed right down. I'm assuming there is a safety car. It's not come up on our timing screen yet, but we've gone yellow on the graphic. So, yep, safety. No, full course yellow is the answer. Full course yellow is called for by Steve Burns, the British race director for the championship. So Gabriele Piana, this is going to hurt him, because those that are in the pit lane are being able to gain time over Piana, who has got to crawl round now into the pits. I would imagine he's going to serve the stop at the end of this lap. Now, OK, those that are going out again are going to have to go at full course yellow pace, but they have the chance of being released while that BMW was in the pit lane. There, ready to go, is Wim Spilloy, who will take over the K. Van Berlo driven Sellerslaag run Mercedes. So full course yellow we have. Gabriele Piana then making his way towards the timing line at walking pace. So all of those good efforts now might come to naught. I say might because, of course, behind him on the track are Castelli and Bus and Moller Madsen and Nabours and Mathias, who have all yet to stop as well. So it's some of the midfielders, actually, that are going to gain. I think number 12 BMW could well be the big beneficiary out of all of this. Cembo Lukbazi taking it over, and he's in the race now. As yet, Piana does come into the pit lane, but it's going to be really interesting this to see who has won and who has lost on that full course yellow relative to the pit window and those that had already started their driver change mandatory stops. So Piana is in. The benefit of full course yellow over safety car, of course, is that you go at a delta speed, you don't all bunch up. So in theory, the gaps should remain. In theory. There, you just get a glimpse of the number 66 Toyota that never started the race, Timothée Bure. So that was a car that was in the gravel in a qualifying session yesterday, but hasn't raced today, sadly. Right, in comes Gabriele Piana. And you see Koen Bogaerts there walking around the pit lane after his earlier stint. Into the car now gets Barshouten. So the belt's done up. There in also, look, is 22. So Bastien Bus has come in to give way to Jan Kasbeck. Nikolai Moller Madsen is in as well. We'd already had Valentin Asclot to give way to Theo Nue, so that could be the beneficiary. Number 27, Aston Martin. We'll have a look at that when the order is restored at the end of the next lap. We'll see where the gaps are. So we're still under full course yellow conditions here as the car of Maurizio Frati is removed. Now, quite often, a race director will put the safety car out to bunch everybody up for a restart. We'll wait and see whether that's going to be the philosophy here. Certainly it is in the GT World Challenge Europe with Alain Adon, but Steve Burns for GT4 may choose to do it a different way. We will see at the end of the next few minutes and see how the recovery work is going on for that Porsche as well. So they're the yellows, the full course yellow boards displayed. And Bas Schouten should still be the race leading driver in the 111 BMW. There is the recovery work for Maurizio Frati's Porsche. So the marshals have got it off the circuit. That will now go through the access gate. So it won't be long, actually, before we are back in business. But that was quite a whack. Very odd that he had the incident. He didn't look like he was out of control coming out of Villeneuve. It just looked like something had seized and pitched the car into a slide. So very peculiar. But look at the damage it's done on that front corner. I know it's being exacerbated by the way that the cradle has been attached to the front of the car, but that has done a lot of damage to that car. And they're having to lift it because of the broken suspension. But it's not doing it much good, especially bouncing over the grass like that. Oh dear. Here's the replay. Look, he's out of the corner. There's a little twitch. He's up the curb. I think something breaks. It almost looks like the rear suspension suddenly has a tweak. The car just ever so slightly looked like it was out of kilter on that right rear corner, and then it went across the road. So maybe he walloped a curve earlier on the lap, and that was what pitched the car off. But there, look at that right rear wheel. That doesn't look quite right either. So I think that was the guilty corner. Something in that flung Frati across the road. You see the tribute there on the fencing, of course. It was that part of the circuit at which Roland Ratzenberger lost his life that dreadful May weekend. Now, this Cembalo Kbazi, pole sitter yesterday, coming down the hill in the Boroshan Automotive Motorsport car, and could well be a beneficiary after the full course yellow period. We've got Timon Nabours still running in second place, yet to serve his pit stop. And coming now down the hill is the BM. So you've got some drivers still to make a stop. I think it's only the Chevrolet, actually, that has yet to do so, of those that are still circulating. And the track almost clear, therefore should enable very swiftly the race to get back underway. But the question mark would be whether or not we're going to have the safety car to bunch them up, or just release straight from the full course yellow. So downhill goes the BMW of Cembalo Kbazi. Here you've got Timon Nabours in the Chevrolet, and he probably ought to come into the pits this time, needs to come into the pits this time. There in 13th place currently is Mark van der yes, there is Nabours then. So what was second place he will now give up, because he's got to serve the stop. And he will do so just in the nick of time, really. Down the pit road he comes. So he's in just before the window closed, but into the pit lane comes the Chevrolet. So there, Joop Ropage, who was aggressive, it's got to be said, yesterday, had an off in qualifying, nerfed a BMW off in the race, and the stewards were having a look at that even this morning. He is going to take over the car. Timon Nabours has a word with the team. And in clambers co-driver Joop Ropage. So we're still under these full course yellow conditions, and lap times have absolutely shot up now to over 2 minutes and 50 seconds as they crawl round. But the drivers are in every car, every case now, with the second driver in. So that's the leader. That is Bas Schouten, having a very vigorous jink from one side to the other. As confirmation that the pit window is now closed. The leading BM goes through, and it is 21 seconds clear of Stéphane Lemeray in the number 8 Toyota. So, having suggested that Theo Nue might have been a beneficiary, it has not worked out for that car, because although he'd made the stop, he was then handicapped by having to go at a slow pace on his outlap, whereas others were bailing into the pit lane. So the order is still going to have gaps unless they're bunched up by a safety car. So there you've got going through Stéphane Lemeray. there, looking at Tamburello, you see number 21, which is now Jörg Wiebahn, so that's the car in 4th place. So it's Schouten BMW, Lemeray Toyota, Kasperlik Porsche, Wiebahn Porsche. And then we'll catch up on the rest of the order once the Chevrolet's made it stop. So there is Stéphane Lemeray, waiting to get up and running again. You can see behind him Jan Kasperlik, who was 8 seconds back at the start of the lap, and it doesn't look like 8 seconds between them now, I've got to say. So up the hill goes the Toyota, and we go green, so that answers it. The full course yellow is withdrawn, and the race resumes, so not bunching up. We go green, and there Jan Kasperlik, slow to accelerate by the look of it, but gets away now as out of Pelotella goes Stéphane Lemeray. So Bas Schouten lead by 21 seconds. Can anybody bring down that gap? And as far as Cembalo Kvazi is concerned, actually, they haven't benefited much on the full course yellow. So he's still mired down in 14th place. He might gain a spot or two before the very end. We've got, just as you see, under 22 minutes to go. So now the lap times will become interesting to see if anybody can catch Bas Schouten. Lemeray is on his toes, isn't he? Stéphane Lemeray, very, very experienced driver. And straight off, throwing everything at this to see what he can do about Bas Schouten. He's quicker in the first, he's quicker in the second sector as well. In fact, he's about 10 seconds quicker in the second sector, so the gap by the end of the lap should be down markedly. There in 3rd place is the experienced Jan Kasperlik, dropping down through the approach to Rivazza. All right, there's the leader going through then. Where's the Toyota? What's the gap going to be? It's still a big gap, isn't it? So Stéphane Lemeray has got too much work to do, I fear. He comes over the timing line, breaks the beam. 13 seconds is the margin. But in the 3rd sector, the BMW was the quicker of the 2 cars, so it's still advantage Schouten over Lemeray in 2nd spot. Then in 3rd is Jan Kasperlik. 4th, it is Jörg Wiebahn, who's driven lots of different things in GT4, Aston Martins most notably. And for 5th place, then, it is the Chevrolet that has survived after the stop, Joop Rapinge, with behind Ivan Jakama. There he is. Jakama in the car that was started by Jean Camethius, so that could be a change. Ivan Jakama is another one doing the GT3 race, the World Challenge Europe event here, so he's had a lot of mileage, but again having to adapt from one type of car to another. So with the gap coming down between 5th and 6th, ignore Camethius, they've just not changed the transponder setting, so it is Ivan Jakama in the car. Into Tosa goes the 718 Porsche from the Century Porsche Ticino, and uphill goes the Swiss driver Ivan Jakama. Bas Schouten in the meantime is still pulling clear, 3/10 up in one sector, again faster in the next, so the gap widening between the top 2. What about the pace of Jan Kasperlik relative to the car ahead of him? Actually, Kasperlik, comparable pace to Lemeray, but I don't think he's going to bring the gap down. This for 5th then, Rapinge versus Jakama. Up the hill they come. Out of the Variante Alta, the big Chevrolet rattles over the curbs. Power downhill once more. But the 718 Porsche that had that spin early on was badly delayed, has fought back nicely here into the top 6, but Jakama not yet able to get himself into a challenging position against the Chevrolet. He might be able to do it at the end of the lap down towards Tamburello if he's really, really brave. There in 7th place is Theo Nue, so actually they lost out on that full course yellow, as also there did Luc Ivaniev in the Mercedes. He just got himself up past Nicolas Gomard. Ivaniev is in a big, big hurry, but yeah, he pitted early, as did Nue, and I think we've now seen pitting early went against you. So over the timing line goes the Mercedes. That's the 3rd placed Porsche. Jan Kasperlik at the helm of it, who's taken a 10th out of Lemeray in the 1st sector here, actually. He's leading the Pro-Am class, Jan Kasperlik, in this car that he shares with Bastien Buss. They've done a very good job in this race. Yesterday, the car was 6th overall and 4th in Pro-Am. Today, it's a Pro-Am leader. So Jörg Wiebahn here, making his way up the hill. The 2nd of the Allied Racing Porsches. Now, is that car going to be able to get onto terms with Jan Kasperlik before the end? That's the next question. up through the approach to that, so goes the leader. Now it's Teo Nue still hustling on behind. See whether or not there's going to be a chance for further progress to be made from that. Nicolas Gomar is the leading AB. He's taken over from Gilles Vannelet, and this car is in 9th place. Might lose that in a moment because Ibrahim Okiai is behind him, and Okiai is also an AM. So there it is, class battle building up nicely here. Ibrahim Okiai soloist for the 2 races, for which he's got an extra 10 seconds as a penalty in the pits. Well, he served that, of course, and he's now back on track. But Ibrahim Okiai has made good despite that extra penalty, getting back onto terms with the Aston Martin that rattles over the curb there as they go through. Up towards the timing line, Luc Ibanez ahead trying to get away. Now let's see what the gap is when they break the beam here between 89 Nicolas Gomar and behind him Ibrahim Okiai. Up past the pits they come, and as they do so, the margin between Aston Martin and BMW is under a second. So, correction, is up to over a second. It is late coming on the timing display. 1.2, yes, fractionally gone up despite the efforts of the BMW driver on that last lap. There is Job Rapinge still under attack from Ivan Jacquemin, who should be able to find a way past him, I would have thought, here as they come into Tosa. Yes, has a look on the inside line. Door is closed. Rapinge gets a little bit of a slide. Corrects that as they get up the hill. And the grunt of the Chevrolet keeps him ahead and pulls him further away, indeed, by a couple of lengths. The lead gap still 13 seconds. Bas Schouten over Stefan Lemeray. Downhill goes this fight for 5th place. Chevrolet versus Porsche. The Camaro ahead of the Cayman. Bouncing over the curb. Ivan Jacquemin throwing everything at this as he heads now up towards the Variante Alta once again, with just over 15 minutes of the race still to go. So ready to drop down the hill once more. You see the way that different cars have different strengths at different parts of the circuit, because here the gap looks less, but of course where the power of the Chevrolet works, it pulls clear. Jacquemin thinks about the inside line, got there a bit late, but showing intent now. So Jacquemin putting the pressure on Job Rapinge as they come up towards the line. Up past the pits, 15 minutes on the clock still. So through now goes the Chevrolet. Bas Schouten, the race leader from pole. Lemeray second, Kaspelik third. Wiebahn fourth, this for 5th. So does Ivan Jacquemin get close enough to have a go as they get to Tamburello? No, he doesn't. Again, he's on the inside line, trying to just distract the racing rookie, Job Rapinge, who's in his first season of car racing, fresh out of karting. So he's doing a good job here, withstanding the efforts of a more experienced driver. Down they come to the approach to Villeneuve. Turn left. Turn right on the power that hauls the car on that little run down towards Tosa. Out wide goes Rapinge though. Behind it is still Nicolas Gomar, experienced GT4 racer in Europe in the French Championship. We've seen him in Super Trofeo as well, the Lamborghini series. But they climb the brow now. Luc Ibanez in the background of this duel. So there is the car in the hands of Teo Nue, delayed, affected by that full course yellow, having just made its pit stop, so it went against them. It's the sister AGS Events car. This is the Silver Cup entry as it drops downhill. So Nue having taken over from a no doubt very frustrated Valentin Asclot, leaving himself with work to do here. Bit of a twitch there from Jacquemin. So, interestingly, he's dropped back away from the Chevrolet, not being able to stay on the tail of that car here as they come once again down through the approach to Rivazza, making the run over the curb. Remember, they were absolutely nose to tail a lap ago, but the gap has certainly widened between the two of them here. To the timing line they come. And the race leader, Bas Schouten, is not quite as far ahead as he was. He's not coming down massively, but from 13 to 12 seconds, so the gap is down a touch. There you've got the race-leading BMW. Now, granted, Bas Schouten, who's an experienced driver, knows what he's doing here, and it means that he's going to be driving within himself. He's not going to be making mistakes. As long as he wins by 1,000th of a second, a win is a win. It doesn't have to be a massive margin. So the fact that the gap is coming down isn't necessarily the end of the world. We've got a couple of cars under investigation for speeding under the full course yellow. One of them is number 30, which is Kay van Berlo, now Wim Spinoy. We've got number 8 being investigated, which is the second place Toyota, Stéphane Lemeray. We've got 718 Ivan Jacquemin under investigation for speeding behind the full course yellow, and also number 12, which is Chambolak Balzi, for speeding allegedly under the full course yellow period. So these are all being looked at. Now the data is there, courtesy of Swiss Timing, the timekeeping force. So that car second on the road is under investigation. So its result may not necessarily be as clear-cut as it looks now. Stéphane Lemeray hustling on. This car that was started by Georg Castelli. Turning now down towards the timing beam. And we'll wait and see if any of these penalties come to anything, or investigations come to anything. There's confirmation from race control. Number 8 is under investigation for its speed under the full course yellow conditions, where you have to run at that delta pace. So Lemeray, all he can do now is push. Of course, whether it was Castelli before the pit stop or Lemeray after, time will tell. But right now the Toyota hustles on in second spot. The gap has gone up again, incidentally, as well. So not only is it being investigated, that car, it's fallen away once more from the race leader. And there's another one under investigation, which is the number 13 BMW, which was Ibrahim Okioy, both before and after the pit stop. So he's definitely the guilty party in that car. Jan Kaspelik here, running third and leading Pro-Am. So the sister car of Jörg Wiebahn is the opposition. The gap between them is 9.4 seconds. So well clear is Kaspelik in the class fight. Uphill goes Ivan Jacquemin, who is being caught by Theo Nue here. So there is Nue. One place to be gained before the end, possible, maybe even two. But the Aston Martin, very rapid indeed right now. Nose to tail, Aston versus Porsche, and Theo Nue working out where he can make his move then. So he's raced in the French GT Championship, he has raced in French Formula 4, and adapting very well to this European scene with a quick co-driver, Valentin Asclot. They were good yesterday, the pair of them getting second place outright, and downhill now the Aston looking for a way past the Porsche after its spin early on. That 718 Cayman back at the races in 6th place. Ivan Jacquemin drops downhill. Through he turns out of Rivazza 1, Rivazza 2 beckons. There, Joop Rapinge, you see, is getting away because suddenly with Jacquemin having to go defensive, he is falling off the back of the Chevrolet. Chevrolet then gets this big advantage, and here comes Theo Nue now to make a move as they head up past the pits. Then, no, doesn't have the pace in a straight line, interestingly. That Cayman very fleet of foot, able to fend him off and actually build the gap again, going down now towards Tamburello. So they turn in, turn through, and as they do so, the Chevrolet onto the power once more. Joop Rapinge trying to get clear of the opposition here. Theo Nue getting himself back onto the tail there of the Cayman as they make the run to Tosa, and actually the gap between them and the Chevrolet has come right down. So Rapinge, all of a sudden, rather than getting away, he's having to look to his laurels once again. So at the end of the previous lap, he was long gone. Now, the two of them absolutely charging and hacking away at this gap, 5th, 6th, 7th. 8.5 minutes on the clock. I can't believe that fuel's going to be an issue today like it was yesterday, but that's something to just keep a thought about in the back of one's mind, ready for the last couple of minutes of the race. As there, out of Aqua Minerali turns the 5th, 6th, 7th placed battle. Joop Rapinge, new to the car, the circuit, the championship, everything, keeping Ivan Jacquemin and Theo Nue at bay. And this illustrates how well GT4 works. 3 completely different brands, 3 different ways of doing it. The front engine Chevrolet, the mid-engine Cayman, the front-engine Aston Martin coming through the Variante Alta together. The big American muscle keeping the mid-engine Porsche behind. Always bullet-shaped Cayman dropping down into Rivazza. So Giacomo, busy, attacking and defending here all at the same time, because he has still got, as you see, right on his tail, Théo Nuet is coming now. Whoops, all over the curb. Giacomo nearly dropped the lot there, didn't he? Ran out wide. That really unsettled him as he came out of Rivazza. Over the timing line they go once again. As they do so, Joop Rapinge on this part of the circuit able to build the gap just a little. Further back, incidentally, behind this group, Luc Ivanieff in the Mercedes has just done the absolute best of anybody in the race in the last sector. So he's absolutely flying and almost up with them. He's not far behind now, as you see Nuet giving a really tough time to Giacomo, which again means that Rapinge gets away. But they need to work together, really. Nuet has got designs on gaining a place, and he's right there. But look at Ivanieff behind in the Mercedes. He's not far adrift either. Théo Nuet comes then now out of Villeneuve down towards Tosa, looks for the inside line, keeps on looking, tries to dislodge the Porsche. It doesn't work going into the corner. Can he get a better line out? No is the answer. And look up the road, Rapinge has got away. Look behind them, you see the Mercedes almost part of the battle now. Luc Ivanieff, there he is, getting closer all the time. So Ivanieff comes into the Pelotella. Still Porsche versus Aston for 6th place then, with Armand Giacomo fending off the challenge of their number 27, Théo Nuet. Nuet pulls out, has a look, and pulls back in again. All over the curb goes Luc Ivanieff. Now that was what was his undoing yesterday. Tapped the curb so vigorously that it did the suspension of the car, the right rear. We thought it was a puncture initially, but then it turned out it was a suspension breakage. He comes over the brow, he drops down towards Rivazza now, chasing this battle where, again, defending the inside line. Armand Giacomo keeps Théo Nuet behind him. Race leader Bas Schouten still 12 seconds to the good. A long way clear up front as we're into the last 6 minutes now. Next group comes over the timing line, as you see there is the number 15 Mercedes. So Luc Ivanieff goes by. Ivanieff getting onto the back of Nuet. That might just give Giacomo a bit more breathing space, because if Nuet has to defend, Giacomo might be able to get clear. So here out of Tamburello they all turn. The cars now come through, whoops, with a clip of the curb. The approach to Villeneuve there. Théo Nuet gets it wrong, compromises his run, keeps the place, survives the moment, but he's under attack as Ivanieff looks to the inside line at Tosa. He can't get through on the way in. What about the way out? The drag up the hill now. Does the Mercedes have a little bit more grunt in a straight line than the Aston Martin? So evenly matched, so there's no change between the two of them there. Over the brow they come now, down through the Pelotella, past the buildings on the inside of the circuit on the left-hand side, drop downhill to Acqua Minerale now. So as they hop over the curb, there you've got the Mercedes on the tail of the Aston that has released the Porsche just a little. Armand Giacomo that little bit nearer to the back of Joop Rapinge here. Downhill they drop. So for Giacomo a Pro-Am entry, Nuet a silver entry, and then Ivanieff also in the Silver Cup. They come through Rivazza into the last 4 minutes. Bas Schouten leading by 11 seconds, gap down just a little bit further. I've not heard anything more about these investigations for the full course yellow possible infringements. So it's still being looked at, but no more than that do we know. The leaders go by, past the pits once again, and the race leading margin 11 seconds is Schouten to Lemeray, who is of course one of those drivers whose car is being looked at for its pace. Under the full course yellow, Ivanieff dives ahead of Nuet into Tamburello, goes wide, goes over the curb. Nuet gets alongside him, goes off the road, gets back on. Mercedes secures the place. So Luc Ivanieff goes through. All a bit heart in mouth, but it has paid off. So through goes the Mercedes. And not only that, Luc Ivanieff, as soon as he's ahead of Théo Nuet, he's away. Granted, the Aston Martin was in strife on the weeds, but the Mercedes has managed to break clear instantly as it comes now down towards Tosa. Now, what about another place for Ibanez? 3 minutes to go. It's going to be hard work. Ivan Jacquemin is almost back with Yacht Rapinge here, while that battle has taken up attention behind. He's been getting on with the job in the 6th place Porsche. Number 718 comes over the brow. So the Swiss driver drops into Aqua Minerale there. Look, inching up onto the back of the Chevrolet. Is there a chance of going through with 2.5 minutes on the clock? Remember, the flag goes out the first time the leader crosses the line once the hour is up. So the number of laps left for these drivers rather depends in part on where the leader is at the end of the hour, whether it's a car that's heading for the flag or has just gone past. And will squeeze another lap out of the race. Cembonuk Bazi, incidentally, down in 12th place, has just done the absolute best of anybody in the first sector, so another driver still pushing. Here's the replay of Ibanez dive bombing at Tamburello. He went out wide. Nue came back at him, gave racing room to Ibanez, thinking he might be having a moment, but that put Nue in strife on the outside, off the road and back on again, but he lost the place. And Ibanez is with Jacquemin. Look at this, he's absolutely flying. Over the line they come. The Mercedes up on the tail of the Porsche then. So Luc Ibanez, who a few laps ago was hardly a part of this battle at all, has caught it and he's working his way through it. The Mercedes, though, is not as good as the Porsche is on this section of the circuit, because again we see the gap widen. Jacquemin there, still stuck behind Rapinge, but under braking, Ibanez in the Mercedes gets nearer once again. 1.5 minutes on the clock. They should squeeze one more lap out of this at the end. So we've got this and one more, I would offer you. Looking at the clock as the leaders work lap number 29. Yesterday's race was 32 in total, but here hard on the brakes into Tosa. Ibanez up the inside of Jacquemin. Is he going to go through side by side coming out of the corner? Yacht Rapinge is in the way because nobody can get past him. The Porsche stays ahead, so it is the same order, but now you've got three of them absolutely as one, and Jacquemin is even more inspired to get past because he does not want to lose that place to the Mercedes. One way of making sure he doesn't is to get ahead of that Chevrolet, so he's pushing. Down they come then now into Aqua Minerale. To the inside line goes Ibanez. There's contact, the Porsche gets sideways, off it goes, exit stage left, and he's still having a moment because there's damage on the rear corner, so the Mercedes goes through. We're on the last lap of the race, but Ivan Jacquemin, after that contact, I'm afraid, very disappointingly, has got, by the look of it, broken suspension, and the Cayman crabbing its way to the end of the race. Now, these cars have got another lap to go. It does say final lap, but that's for the race leader who has gone on to that last lap. These cars have to get onto that last lap, yeah. So there is Bas Schouten. He's on now his final approach to Tosa. He turns into the corner, and as he does so, he is 9.5 seconds clear of Stéphane Lemeray. So he's a long way clear, even though the gap is much less than it was 10 laps or so ago. Bas Schouten looks as though it's going to be 2 out of 2 for him and Gabriele Piana this weekend then. But for Ivan Jacquemin, big disappointment after that contact, and waiting to see whether he can limp on for another lap or whether he's going to have to go for the pit lane. But no such dramas for Bas Schouten, who, like Gabriele Piana, actually has been incredibly lonely throughout this race. Behind, Lemeray is still second and Kasperlik is third. In 4th place it is Viban, and here's 5th, 6th, 7th then. The impregnable Chevrolet, Yacht Rapinge keeping the place, but Ibanez dive bombs him going into Tosa, gets up the inside, more contact. Well, he's hit the Porsche, now he's hit the Chevrolet, so Luc Ibanez gets rid of the Chevrolet in rather brutal fashion, gains the place, Theo Nue behind him, but 2 strikes for Luc Ibanez. I think he's going to be having a word with the stewards, isn't he? There are going to be 2 very grumpy drivers about all of that, and Luc Ibanez, yes, made the move, but contact, I'm afraid, has got rid of the Chevrolet. So at the end of all of the drama, it means that up towards the checkered flag and up towards a win will go number 111, Bas Schouten and Gabriele Piana. Through comes the BMW, 2 out of 2 this weekend here at Imola. A great result for the RN Vision STS team. And second, there goes the way of the Toyota, finishing today after its retirement yesterday. Better result, of course, for Gaël Castelli and Stéphane Lemeray. So they're the top 2 in the Silver Cup. Now, anybody want to be third? Jan Kasperlik, it should be. And in doing so, Kasperlik's Porsche should take honours, there it is, in Pro-Am. So over the timing line goes 22, Jan Kasperlik and Bastian Bus. Fourth place should be the sister car for second in Pro-Am of Jörg Wiebahn and Nikolai Moller-Madsen. Fifth over the line, third in silver, very provisionally I would say, Luc Ibaniev and Xavier Lloberas. The AM class is going to go the way of 89, Gilles Vannelet and Nicolas Gomar. From 13, Ibrahim Okiai. And the third of the AMs will be a delayed Giuseppe Getzi and Salvatore Riolo. So a very happy Bas Schouten there, making his way down through the approach to the end of the slowing down lap, and then the approach to Parc Fermé. It's on his way out of Pilatella at the moment. So a quick word about who was third in Pro-Am, looking down the order, because that was a long way adrift. Wim Spinoy and Kay van Berlo took third in Pro-Am. Now, of course, in these curious times, you can't do proper podium ceremonies, you can't have people handing over trophies, so the drivers will be collected, the top three in each category, and then they will be ushered towards the trophies. They will collect them and then stand in the appropriate place for photographs. So it's a different way, sadly, of doing it, but at least the drivers get the trophy provision some way. This is how we provisionally finished the race. Bas Schouten and Gabriele Piana the victors, ahead of Stefan Lemery and Gael Castelli. Jan Kasperlik third, along with Bastian Bus from Jörg Wiebahn and Nikolai Moller-Madsen. Luc Ibaniev and Xavier Lloberas, after a bruising last few laps, coming home behind. With then in sixth place, Thio Nui and Valentin Asclot. Nicolas Gomar and Gilles Vannelet take the AM Cup from Ibrahim Okiai. Joop Rapinge and Timon Nabours ninth, so they got to the end after the spin. 10th being Wim Spinoy and Kay van Berlo from Cembolo Quasi and Jagish Gedik. Mark van der Aar and Koen Bogarts faded at the end, only 12th ahead of Giuseppe Getzi and Salvatore Riolo in 13th place. Ivan Jacoma retired to the pit lane in the car that he'd been sharing with Joel Camathias. Paolo Maloney and Stefano Valli we also lost, and of course Maurizio Frati's Porsche was in the wall, and Timothy Bourret never started with the second of the Toyotas. So mixed fortunes for many. There is the winning BMW, as yesterday, making its way into the Parc Fermé area. Toyota for second place arrives on the scene. Gael Castelli and Stefan Lemery very disappointed yesterday when the car ran out of fuel and parked on the track. A delighted Gabriele Piana, of course, with his face mask, goes to congratulate Bas Schouten. Ina Pfiffner from SRO, the championship manager, is there to hand over the regulation Pirelli hats, ready for the official photographs. So it's been a very good weekend for BMW, and especially for the STS team, with the race win yesterday and again today. So marking this car out as certainly one to watch, but of course some cars work very well at certain circuits. It doesn't necessarily follow that that's going to be dominant at every venue. So the drivers now will make their way up to the presentation area. Stefan Lemery and Gael Castelli illustrating the potential as well of the Toyota. So good to see that car going strongly on its first race weekend. And let's see if we can grab a word with our winning drivers in due course. So there, the drivers out of cars. Nikolai Gomar amongst them. Jan Kasperlik, Jörg Wiebahn, regulars in GT4 with, again, good results in Pro-Am. And we have the race victors Schouten and Gabriele Piana, and 2 metres away from them is Gemma Scott.
Gabrielle, Bast, a fantastic race. That's a textbook weekend for you with the double win this weekend. Gabrielle, you drove the first stint, you pulled out a nice margin and things continued from there.
Yeah, it was a perfect weekend. I think we were the quickest every session, pretty much. So this also goes to show how good the performance of the BMW was here. And you know, we are drivers, but we could have not done it without the team. So the team did a perfect job. We had a fantastic car from Thursday to Sunday. So this is the best way to, you know, pay them back also with 2 wins. It doesn't often happen in GT4 series. Yeah, I mean, the race for me was, yesterday was just managing, and today I had to attack a little bit, but I was just looking after the car because it was still very warm. I wanted to give him, because the risk of a safety car is always there, so up to a certain point when you are 5 seconds in front, it doesn't matter anymore because you can get a safety car. So I was just managing so that I could give the car to Bas in case he needed a sharp tool. And yeah, then the full course yellow came, perfect timing for us, then it was smooth sailing.
And certainly nice to have that home win.
Yeah, that feels very nice, yeah. I hope to do it again in Misano. So.
Excellent stuff. Thank you both very much.
So the next stop for the championship is going to be Misano, and a great drive by both Schouten and by Gabriele Piana. So very, very good result for the RO Envision STS BMW. There you've got the drivers then within the Parc Fermé area across the 3 classes. So the AMs being recognised as well as those in the Pro-Am and Silver Cups. There is Gabriele Piana. Takes on some liquid, mask back on, and Gabriele then makes his way with the local officials away from the cars. So as the GT4 European Series has burst into life, yes, I know numerically it isn't as strong as last year, but there are plenty of teams still working on deals and looking to join the championship because it's a good series for gentlemen drivers and for young drivers as well, eager to get themselves on the GT ladder. So you can learn about GT racing, and you don't have to look very far down the GT World Challenge entry to come across names that we've been familiar with from this series and how well they are now going. So I can understand why drivers want to take part in GT4 if funds and budget, of course, permits. So the drivers making their way shortly to that presentation area. And to go to the scrutineering garage where they must be weighed. Are Gabriele Piana and Schouten then as the race winners, and being called forward. Trophies await, so those are your trophies. See the stickers there for the class, and the SRO officials trying to make sure everyone gets the correct silverware. Then they go and stand in front of the Certina backdrop for the photographs, and then we have the second placed Silver Cup crew, Stefan Lemeray and Gail Castelli, and the third of the silvers, although I suspect it's up for discussion, namely Luc Ibanez and Xavier Lloveras, but they're in the Toyota colours for CMR, Classic and Modern Racing. Stefan Lemeray and the experienced Gail Castelli, French one-make champion in Seats, in Peugeots, and indeed in Porsches. He was Carrera Cup champion back in 2013. Gail Castelli, experienced driver, and the Classic Modern Racing team victorious as there Luc Ibanez and Xavier Lloveras take third provisionally in silver. There you have the Jan Kasperlik and Bastien Bus partnership that will take honours in the Pro-Am division. So you've seen the top three silvers, and they're making their way to the trophy area. Jan Kasperlik, who is the Am, and Bastian Bus is the ex-Carter, who, with him alongside Jan Kasperlik, comes into Pro-Am, brings that car into the Pro-Am division. Now, there is a touch of confusion, is there, as to who is required. So, up to the trophy area come the Allied racing drivers. There you've got Wim Spinoy and Kay Van Berlo, the third of the Pro-Ams. Better result than yesterday. It was a punctured tyre yesterday that stopped them in their tracks. So a result today, as you see there, Jörg Vivan and Nikolai Muller-Madsen, the second in Pro-Am, second combination. And the notional top step, as we saw earlier, to Bastian Bus and Jan Kasperlik. And a very happy partnership, Bastian Bus new to car racing. So we've had our silvers and our Pro-Ams, and we've got the Ams as well to recognise. And the drivers being called forward. Third place from the Am class being Giuseppe Gezzi and Salvatore Riolo. The Porsche drivers for the Auto Orlando Sports Squad, one with a great heritage in GT racing, whether it's been with SRO or the Italian domestic scene. So third for the Porsche drivers. In second, the one soloist, Ibrahim Okyay, the Turkish driver, who didn't have a co-driver. The co-driver couldn't get here, so the stewards allowed him to race on his own. So he's had plenty of mileage this weekend as Ibrahim Okyay, and he takes second. And they're the Am winners, Nicolas Gomar and the redoubtable Gilles Vannelet, who has been a mainstay of SRO championships for decades, and a hugely experienced character is Gilles Vannelet, and he and Nicolas Gomar celebrating the class win for AGS events with the Aston Martin. So as ever, lively racing from the GT4 European Series, and the championship will have a couple of weeks off before the teams reconvene, and the next stop is going to be Misano, again along with GT World Challenge Europe in early August, then to the Nürburgring first weekend of September. At the end of September the cars go to Zandvoort. They will race at the total 24 hours of Spa and finish the season at Port Ricard in November. So some top venues, as you would anticipate, for the GT4 European Series. And the drivers now with team managers making their way from the pit lane, but our Envision STS celebrating a great weekend. 2 victories from the first 2 races. Whether it's going to be quite so easy from here on in, well, follow the action and find out from Misano. But for now, a very happy team, and Bas Schouten and Gabriele Piana, 2 very happy drivers indeed. So there we have the scene at Parc Fermé with the top 3 cars from each class. The drivers are, of course, now in that photo area. So their work done for the weekend from GT4. Let's look at what went on over the last hour. Lots of drama early on with that great start by Gabriele Piana, putting him ahead of Valentin Asclot, and Gael Castelli slotting in third place. But early drama as the round spun. Kay Van Berlo, ultimately for third in class, and he took Stefano Valli with him. They were able to rejoin, although a delayed BMW meant that Paolo Maloney ended up in 15th place. Then we had dramas between the Porsches, Nikolai Muller-Madsen and Jelko Mathias coming to grief, and both were delayed, but both did rejoin the race, all of which enabled us to witness another spectacular Muller-Madsen charge back up through the field as he tried to regroup after his dramas. Good battle as well lower down, but in the end, Timon Navur got run out wide by Muller Madsen and lost a place, but he fought back well on the inside line going up towards Tamburello. Charging in the second part of the race with the Mercedes, but Xavier Lloveras had driven it to begin with. We had an early full course yellow as the pit window opened, because off the road here went Maurizio Frati, and the pit window and full course yellow helped some, hindered others, and it meant that at the end of it, Bas Schouten was well clear when we went back racing, being chased by the Stefan Lemeray driven Toyota. We had dramas behind as well, though, because Luc Ivaniev got onto the tail of Theo Nue and went past him. Then he got onto the back of the Ivan Giacomo Porsche and got particularly leery. Contact did the suspension on the Porsche, and Ivaniev was not done yet, because then he caught the Corvette, the Chevrolet, and got rid of, spectacularly, Yacht Rapinge as well down at Tosa. Ivaniev may well have a case to answer, but it has been a dramatic weekend with 2 race wins going the way of Gabriele Piana and Bas Schouten. From Imola, from David Addison, and the GT4 European Series is goodbye.